Now, about a year ago, it was International Stuttering Awareness Day, where I first came in contact with your Proud Stutter, Maya, and my life changed with Proud Stutter. It's been the most life enhancing thing I think I've ever done. And tonight is the first time in my life that my stammer might actually be benefiting me in some way because I'm speaking to you. You've contributed with your Proud Stutter and sharing your stories on Proud Stutter, and I know I'm not the only person who feels like this. The voice that you've given us and the sensitive issues you've brought up and the sensitive issues we could speak about when you were speaking about work and you were speaking about dating, there's some real sensitive issues that we could bring up.
I think what was so powerful and so different about City Hall is that I've never shared the stage with other people who stuttered. Um, and like it was really beautiful just to see everyone walk in and sort of own their space and own their voice. And to know that like how they were going to speak was not going to be unusual and different from how other people were, but it was going to be the norm. And it was just so inspiring to share and the courage of everyone who was there, and then to have a public leader like Dean Preston and others there in support. I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean, I've never experienced something like that, and yeah, it's hard to express how meaningful it is. And it's like the podium and the microphone are like the things of nightmares for a stutterer, right? Like these are things that that's like the weird stuff that pops up in my dreams still, right? It's like a microphone and a podium. And there we were, like seven of us, just like rocking it. And it was so cool. And I just like wish my, second grade self like could have seen that. So it was really special.
The fact that your podcast has already connected you to so many people, or even at the convention, when you, Maya, introduced your podcast, like I feel like every single person responded with like, oh, I know somebody with a stutter, or my sibling has a stutter, or my coworker, or whatever. And I've never known that there are that many people in the world with stutters, until I was with you walking around and everybody we interacted with knew somebody with a stutter. And I'm like, holy wow. Because I just think those aren't conversations being had.
When I met Maya, I spent several days with her, and I never heard her stutter until I learned that she more pauses. And so then after being around her a while, I could catch little moments of it, but not like it was never what I was aware with. And then the one time we had a long conversation where she stuttered more, she was excited because for once she wasn't stopping herself.
Maya, because this podcast has changed my life in that I am now more accepting of my stutter now. And at the age of 52, I am no longer trying to hide it or trying to disguise it. And it's just made me more happy and much more at ease.
You came on and you shared the Proud Stutter, and um you know like I said, I had never really in the past really addressed my stutter, not even really with family or friends. I just when you shared your own journey with stuttering, and I think you had shared a snippet of an episode too, right? And and you know I just felt seen, in a way that I had never felt seen before. um uh and so I'm part of technically, like, other marginalized groups, other, historically oppressed groups. And so I get representation from those aspects, being a brown person, and seeing myself represented, and all those things always matter on some level, I guess, but nothing ever felt so personal as this, because this is something that, like, I don't share this with my family. It's not something we have in common. It's not something I have in common with my friends. It was something that's very specific to me and my personal experience, moving through life. And so to feel seen, it was just, man, I was driving to another coffee shop while I was listening to the rest of your sharing, and I just started getting teary eyed, and I'm like, why? What is this liquid coming out of my eyes? Like, what's going on here? I'm in a training for work. I'm not supposed to cry. Like, this isn't, and it was like this wave of emotions, and I couldn't even really process it until, like, a couple of minutes after you had already presented. And yeah, I think I messaged you afterwards, because um it was a very unique and life changing experience.
Hi, this is Grace. This is honestly such a great idea. I actually stumbled upon the podcast the day after International Stuttering Awareness Day, since I wanted to see if there was a podcast on it. For a bit of background, I think y'all are doing a great job with the podcast, and the value you all are providing should not be overlooked. I mean, I wish I had this podcast as a resource when I was in middle school or high school. And yeah, I look forward to keeping in touch with y'all over email.
I really appreciate everything you guys are still doing, again, and it's nice to know that I'm not alone with this issue, because before, talk about, a couple of years ago, I definitely would never have thought I was not in this alone. So it was pretty awesome to see your guys' podcast, and I appreciate everything that that you two are doing on the podcast, and talking to the certain scientists and experts in the field, and those who also share similar experiences that I have in my life. So,
hello, Maya and Cynthia. I discovered Proud Stutter a few weeks ago and was really inspired by the idea of acceptance and coming out and accepting our speech. I'm someone who has a stutter myself, and I wrote a book about that journey of having a stutter and being gay and coming out at the same time. And really, I think it's the message that needs to be shared more nowadays, rather than dealing with your speech or overcoming it. Really learning to accept it as part of our speaking personalities is where the real freedom comes from. Anyway, thank you. I'm very excited to see what comes next on Proud Stutter.
Hi there, my name is Peter Edelberg, and I have a stutter. I just discovered your show, and we really find it powerful. I know talking on the radio for me is very difficult, and you talked about it in an episode I was just listening to with Nina G, where, sometimes we just don't want to have to go through it or have to stutter, so we find ways out of it. Sometimes I think I spend more time trying to avoid my stutter than actually embracing it as a part of me. So, yeah. Anyways, thank you very much.